Who
No foolish heroics, if you please.
is Darkman? They destroyed everything he had, all that he loved, everything that he was. Now, crime has a new enemy, and justice has a brand new face.
I was afraid that you wouldn't want me anymore.
Of course I still want you.
The good news is that I know who's behind our little troubles of late. Finish it.
He has the power to look like any man,
These two are both sons of witches!
but he is unlike any man.
I gotta tell you something about me. He's a cockroach. You think you kill him? And he pops up someplace else.
In the darkest hour,
Julie, who's the real monster here?
there's a light that shines on every human being. But one. From director Sam Raimi, Darkman.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Delvecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Myers. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, everyone. And just like last week, not really a bit here, but I do want to publicly thank anyone that listens to this podcast that did donate to our Extra Life campaign to benefit the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. If you didn't see the stream and hear us thank you live there, I want to make sure that I thank you properly on this podcast. We got to $1,350, which was above our $1,000 goal, so thank you guys very much. You can still donate until December 31st if you wanted to help us out. And you can donate at tinyurl.com/gamerdadbattle. Go right there and maybe help us reach $2,000 again this year. So once again, for anyone listening to this podcast and didn't really tune into the stream, I want to make sure that we publicly thanked you for your donation for the kids.
Okay, no jokes again.
No.
Disappointing. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
All right, but we do have a movie to watch,
Yes,
regardless of Mark just taking a couple weeks off from his bits. But we have a movie, and it was my week this week, and I picked Darkman from 1990. And I picked this a while ago because I think it wound up becoming sort of it's talked about again during the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness kind of phase of this summer, with Sam Raimi directing that. And this became a topic of conversation, and I had never seen Darkman, so I wanted to watch it, and that's the reason why I picked it. So, and
As good a reason as any, really.
yeah, and it's an interesting movie. It's a comic book movie without a comic book as a source material, but it pulls heavily from things like the Universal Monsters, pulp comics of the 30s and 40s, The Shadow. I think this was originally made because Sam Raimi wanted to do a Shadow movie,
Correct,
and was not allowed to do so because it would come out, I think, a couple years later with Alec Baldwin as the Shadow. So he made Darkman. It's not bad. I think it is very much a Sam Raimi movie, very much a pre-Marvel comic book movie. It's silly. It's sometimes fun in that Sam Raimi sort of way. Overall, it kind of dragged for me a little bit, if I'm being completely honest with you. I'm not sure if I liked I'm not sure if I like Darkman as a character. That's just me though, but I don't know. But I want to know
Like,
where
what do you mean by
like
like?
as a quote unquote superhero.
Okay.
Like I'm not. It doesn't. It's not very intriguing to me because he's really just Mission Impossible masking the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's some interesting things here. It's a little Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame, Phantom of the Opera, and then it. I'm not saying that The Dark Knight ripped it off by the ending with some guy hanging from a building upside down and having a conversation of how we're just so similar and how we're going to be doing this forever. You can't kill me, and then that doesn't necessarily become true. But I'd like to hear what you guys think. So, Dan, let's start with you. Where are you coming from with Darkman?
I, like yourself, have never seen Darkman, but I'm very glad you did because this Sam Raimi movie has always eluded me. I think we're all fans of the director here, and we enjoyed his work. I'm on record as saying I enjoyed Multiverse of Madness. I think it had some good scenes in it, and they had a lot of fun there. And I like Raimi and how he has his own unique vision with his movies. I enjoyed the use of practical effects and special effects because it's not super special effects laden, but it's there obviously. Again, this movie's from 1990, so you can't really expect too much if you go back and watch it. You also mentioned The Dark Knight, and the score of this movie is just riddled with Batman in it, like hints of Batman 1989 in it. Danny Elfman doing the score for both, so because it has those like gothic undertones for certain scenes, which I enjoyed. I thought that I don't know if Elfman really didn't understand, like he saw Darkman in it, and he's like, oh, okay, it's like Batman in a way, just dark, obviously. I agree. I do have written in my notes. It's a bit slow in parts, like especially in the beginning. It takes a little bit to get going, and even towards, I'd say, in the third act, I wasn't necessarily having fun with the action sequences. It didn't feel like it fit the tone of the movie. Well, you have this giant helicopter chase scene at the end. It's like, man, this really doesn't seem to fit what the rest of the movie has been.
Sure. Yeah. I think the problem is that the movie does feel like a throwback to like the 40s, 50s kind of pulp.
Yeah.
And then that's just so very modern, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm watching the trailer right now.
Because it feels like something, like you said, kind of out of like a Pulp Fiction, not Mission Impossible, or
like a Dick
Die
Tracy.
Hard. Dick Tracy.
Dick Tracy in the beginning, and then Die Hard, Lethal Weapon in the helicopter chase. Yeah,
absolutely. You have these very funny looking henchmen that work for Durant. And that was also another thing. I wasn't really blown away by the antagonists in this movie. I thought they were very plain. And they have the twist at the end, right, where it's that guy Strack, Louis Strack. It's like, okay, well, why? Just because I didn't understand the motivation, and they didn't really flesh the character out enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I liked Liam Neeson in this, and it's funny because everyone nowadays just knows Liam Neeson as an action star, right? With the Taken series and like Passenger on the whatever train or whatever. I don't know. He Walk Among the Tombstones, this, that, and the other thing. He's been in just a bunch of action movies, but that's not how he started. He was more of a thespian. He was in more dramatic roles. And this, I'm pretty sure a studio exec saw this and was like, especially the carnival scene where he turns on a dime from having a lot of fun with Frances McDormand. And it's just like, give her the elephant. I want the elephant. I'm like, oh, dude, this guy, he has the makings to be like pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm glad I watched it, but I wasn't I think I expected more. I wasn't blown away by it.
Okay. Good. Mark, what about you?
Yeah, so I think the way this made the list might have been coming through the conversations we were having around the time that Blank Check was doing their Sam Raimi, series before Doctor Strange. Because I think it was this and The Quick and the Dead. I had mentioned to you, at least, I was like, I didn't realize those were Sam Raimi movies. Because I had never seen this movie, but I'd heard of Darkman. As in some cases, it was people making fun of it, because people called it a superhero movie and stuff like that, but I'd never actually seen it. So I was going in hoping it would be kind of like how The Quick and the Dead surprised me, and to being an actual, good watch. This drug at points where it shouldn't really. I'm surprised that I checked the time on this movie. I feel like I, don't do that with directors that are fairly competent. But yeah, near the end, that second, third act was really like, okay. I don't know if they were trying to go for some kind of, extended story, because as you said, they didn't build Darkman much as a character in this movie. He was just basically you gave your Mission Impossible example. Mine felt more like in video game Agent 47, in the sense of, he's putting on all these costumes to go around and do, the job instead of using what his actual superpower is, which I believe is he's basically Wolverine without the claws, essentially. Like, he can't feel pain, and, is super strong. But the not having those powers come into play, like when he's fighting the mobsters, not him like punching them across the room,
Right.
sort of thing would have been pretty cool. And him just maybe walking towards one as they're shooting him, because he doesn't feel the bullets. Could have been
Nick
a cool
Cage,
scene.
right? Nick Cage in Con Air.
Yeah.
Right, he gets hit in the arm and he just keeps walking.
Yeah, like something like that, just to show those skills off would have made a ton of difference in this movie. I think the standouts is it's definitely one of those movies where you can watch and see Liam Neeson and Frances McDermott and go, okay, there's something here in terms of their talent. It's like she's not on screen much, but when she's on screen, I want to watch her. And it's a trait when you're going to some of these early movies and actors' careers where you can go, all right, I see, where they got into the more dramatic instead of blockbuster roles. But yeah, the villains, like, I guess he'd be the secondary villain. Started off really cool using the cigar cutters to cut off a guy's fingers. Was a really cool concept, especially the cool, at least to me, the really cool line he gives him when he asks the questions and cuts off 3 fingers, and he goes, well, bad, something's to you, I have 7 more,
Right.
And I'm like, oh, it's a pretty good villain line. And from there, his character just falls off a cliff in terms of being intimidating. Even the scene when he breaks into Darkman's science apartment, I guess.
Yeah.
That's not really, I felt more threat from his goons than him in that scene. I did like the cool idea, that thing that rocks back and forth, slowly setting off as like a sort of a timer thing in the audience's mind.
The bird drinking the water?
It's drinking the water.
Yeah. So, and, and they did the one thing I love when you set up something kind of cool like that, and then you sort of bring it back later in the movie as turning it on them was a pretty good idea. But yeah, the action scenes were less than I was expecting. There were a lot of the visual stuff is very, very Sam Raimi. Some of it I felt was unnecessary, like the cutaways to different, obvious green screen, backgrounds and stuff. Just felt a little unnecessary at times. And yeah, I'm obviously not talking about things that are obvious on green screen because they didn't have the sets to go to do it. But this felt like, Sam Raimi, this is what he cut his teeth on to make Spider-Man. He got the bad ideas for a superhero movie out of the way, and took the best ideas from this movie and put it into that. I just wish there was more here. I don't know if it would have been better if it was 2 movies or 3 movies, like a like, you have a full thing and this was just the origin movie. I don't know, but as Dan said, glad I could check it off my list. It's one of the few remaining Raimi movies I've not seen. So I think I only got a couple more of his early work to see. But yeah, this was a little more disappointing than I was expecting going in.
Sure, I do appreciate the stunt work at the end in that one. I didn't think the action sequence was particularly interesting, but I will say the stunt work was pretty impressive. I didn't think that the movie was going to blow up a whole bunch of helicopters and have a guy suspended on a hook throughout the city on hanging from a helicopter. So I appreciated that, but yeah, I think to Dan's point, it just didn't feel like it was in the right movie. It definitely felt like a movie coming out of the Lethal Weapon Die Hard era.
Yeah, it felt very much like it needed to be it felt like it had a little bit of the studio's hands in it at times. I think Sam wanted it to be a little bit more that Dick Tracy, I guess, was it Hudson Hawk is the other sort of period movie.
Nobody wanted anything to be like Hudson Hawk.
That's Bruce Willis.
I meant the visuals.
I don't really know much about Hudson Hawk other than people claim it's an awful movie.
Yeah. I was thinking more of the time period visuals for the way. I might also be thinking of a completely other movie, but
I can't confirm or deny.
Yeah, either way, because the scene where it's coming in my head with that is just the scene where they're in the eventual big bad's office, and he opens that window and it shows the construction behind him. It just seems something that would be like from those produced type movies, because I believe that was that Coen Brothers Hudson Hawk or
Hudson Hawk is the Bruce Willis movie. Are you thinking of Miller's Crossing?
It was from the same time period that this movie came out. They did a similar movie. Forget. I may be confusing without looking it up beforehand. It just popped in my head while you were talking.
The one thing I liked about this was Raimi was able to kind of show Liam Neeson's character Peyton was like pretty much a monster at one point, and the makeup on Liam Neeson's character's face from a distance looked really cool. It got a little wonky when you did close-ups of it when he's trying to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like, okay, obviously that's prosthetics, but it's still half his face is missing. He kind of looked like a cross between like the Mummy and maybe like a Phantom, like you said, Ant. And he's essentially Batman, but just to the next level where he can't cope with his depression essentially. Darkman just lets loose, and he's not afraid to just beat the shit out of people. And Batman does that too, obviously, but there's some restraint with Batman. Darkman just goes all out. I don't know if there was some type of connection there. I wouldn't have been surprised. But yeah, I think to Mark's point as well, he kind of worked out the kinks before he made Spider-Man.
Right.
And obviously it's so much easier to make a movie about a well-established character that's been around since the 60s, and who's one of the most popular characters of all time, instead of writing your own character and fleshing that out. So I give him a lot of credit with making this movie, because he did it for the most part his way. It seems like he had the Raimi extreme close-ups and the weird camera angle, like the Dutch angles. Mm-hmm. I always like the way he shoots his movies. And going back to Multiverse of Madness, he does that there as well in a few scenes, and those are the best scenes where he can kind of break away from Feige and like, all right, I want to shoot it this way, I want to shoot this that way. I think this movie is kind of gaining a little bit of a cult following now. I hear a decent amount about it on other podcasts where they talk about movies. Darkman is usually brought up in a glowing light. Like oh yeah, it's unique, this movie for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to jump in, it's the Hudsucker's proxy is what I was
Hudsucker
thinking of.
proxy.
Well, I
Is
could
what
see
I
where
was
you get Hudson from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just the whole time I was listening to that, I was like, I know, and then I found that movie. But that was what I was thinking of, the Hudsucker's proxy.
I do wish they would have kept it grounded, though, right? You don't need that giant chase scene. Or if you do, because it gets so goofy. Right? At one point, he's like running on top of, and when I say he, I mean Darkman. He's kind of like running on top of trucks that are passing by.
Mm.
It's goofy.
Goofy, yeah.
You could see someone like Spider-Man doing that because it makes sense. But this character, we've established nothing of the sort. Like, okay, he's a little stronger, but does that mean he can fly into glass windows and get hit by cars and be okay?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And because Mark, you were saying it would have been cool to see him walk into gunfire. I would assume if he got shot, he'd still die. He's still a person.
Yeah, I just was more thinking like you were saying.
Like, it'd be cool.
Kind of like he gets shot in the shoulder and just sort of shakes it off and just keeps going and like freaks the guy out.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. What are his powers are limited to just he feels no pain, right?
Yeah.
And when he gets mad, he gets super strong. She says
super
that
strong,
casting.
or he just gets kind of like, stronger in terms of like adrenaline, lift a car, the mother lifting a car, saved her children, sort of thing.
Don't think they went into that. We probably interpreted it two different ways.
They never explore his strength.
No.
He throws the carny. Can I say carny? Is that offensive?
I mean, probably to carnies.
Okay. How many of them are listening to us though?
That's
so
right.
when he throws the carnival barker,
there you go.
Through the
Simpson said carnies 20 years ago. It's probably fine.
Yeah, I would assume so.
The Carney Code.
It's the Carney Code. That's right. We were beaten by the best. So he throws the guy through his game, but I don't know if that, like, are we counting that as super strength?
Right.
I was just saying I probably misinterpreted what she meant, the nurse, when she was explaining it.
But they didn't explain that.
Right. I think what they were talking about, and maybe I missed it when she said something about strength, was more of like the lack of feeling of pain starts to dampen their empathy, and they start, acting out in anger without regard for others.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Okay. I also didn't have captions, so I could have missed it completely.
I guess that makes sense, right? Because if you're uninhibited by remorse, or you stop caring about, you have no feeling, and you kind of go a little crazy. You kind of let loose, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's how they meant it.
Yeah. But I mean, he does break out of his restraints in the hospital and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's inconsistent, I think, at the very least.
At the very least, I do wish they kind of explore the pain part right at the end, where Strack shoots him with like a rivet gun.
Yeah,
and it hits him in the hand, and he kind of just he doesn't make a sound or anything. It's just, so like, okay, yeah, he doesn't feel pain, but after that, like, they don't really explain it.
Yeah,
he's essentially the bad guy from the first Deadpool, if you remember.
I don't.
He feels no pain. That's it.
Gotcha.
That's his power.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shitty power.
It's really not much of a power.
It's more of a
I guess it is. And in him, it's not like he didn't get like bit by a radioactive spider and has all these powers. He has this power because he's basically been burnt to within an inch of his life, and it's killed off all the nerve endings.
It's true.
Like a burn victim's not going to call, like, if they have that same thing, which might be scientifically or medically accurate that could happen. They're probably not going to call it their superpower.
Unless they're trying to fool themselves,
Yeah.
Like, oh no, yeah, I think of it more as a superpower, that if you were to punch me repeatedly, I wouldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
I think I like the idea of him going undercover as these mob bosses and goons and all that. I think that's an interesting use of the science. to get revenge, I think that's cool. I think you could have left out all the other parts, right?
Yeah.
'Cause what in the long run, him not feeling pain and him being strong don't come into play.
Yeah, they really don't.
So if you wanted it to just be him taking down the mob by cosplaying as the mob, okay, I think that's cool. And it's an imperfect science, and he's there's always a running clock. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. Like, he has to accomplish these feats within 90 minutes, or else his cover's blown.
Yeah, I did like that aspect of it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because it introduces another level where he can't just walk around freely.
Yeah.
Although it made me realize, why doesn't he do this stuff in the dark?
Right?
He's Darkman, but he
He's
does
Darkman.
everything in the morning.
Broad daylight and everything. This entire movie.
Right. So I kept thinking, when are they going to explain why he's called Darkman? I don't get it. And then they explain, oh, well, the cells for the fake skin only adhere in the dark. Like, oh, okay, I get it. But again, that doesn't come into play.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The one time he's in the dark, he doesn't have a mask on.
Yep.
So just some missed opportunities, but I wouldn't say it completely took me out of it.
No.
Yeah, and they also did the unforgivable sin of him giving himself his own nickname.
Right.
He calls himself Darkman, yeah.
So, Darkman from 1990 is directed by Sam Raimi, director of the Evil Dead trilogy, the original Spider-Man trilogy, The Quick and the Dead, and A Simple Plan, among others. Stars Liam Neeson, Frances McDormand, Colin Friels, Larry Drake, Jesse Lawrence Ferguson, Dan Hicks, Ted Raimi, Nicholas Worth, Aaron Lustig, and Jennia Cutter, with cameos by Bruce Campbell. There was, who else? The Coen brothers are in there somewhere. John Landis is also in there too.
I saw that. I must have missed that.
The child killer himself.
I was going to say, was he the helicopter pilot?
Well, there are a lot of helicopter explosions in this movie, so probably just kept telling them to get lower.
Oh wow, Neil McDonough is in this.
He's got before he was famous.
Quote unquote famous.
Yeah,
more so infamous, I'd say, right?
Yeah, it has an IMDb score of 6.4 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 84%.
Wow.
Budget, very high.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Budget $14 million. Box office $48 million worldwide.
Not bad.
All right.
Small little fortune there. There wasn't a sequel.
There was 2 sequels.
Oh, that's right. Direct-to-video sequels, but sequels nonetheless.
Yeah, the second one is The Return of Durant, and the third one is I think it's called Die, Darkman, Die.
Ooh,
and Darkman is played by the Mummy from the Brendan Fraser Mummy series.
Damn.
Yeah, some real star power going on there.
Yeah. Darkman 3. Die, Darkman, Die. Oh, he's got a full head of hair too. That's weird.
You're right. Yeah, it's so off-putting.
I don't like it.
Yeah, you would just think that guy has always been bald, right?
Yeah. Arnold Vosloo.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys want to get into the plot?
Sure.
Dan, what do you got for us?
I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Geek Vibes Nation, Tia and Brittany, and I would like for you to go check out their podcast, The Top 10 with Tia. It's a weekly podcast where Tia and Brittany break down their top 10 lists of the week. So if that is something you enjoy, if you enjoy lists, if you enjoy podcasts, it's combining those two and it's right up your alley. So just go over to geekvibesnation.com, search top 10 lists with Tia, and you will be able to listen to all of their episodes. So go give it a listen.
Okay, great. And we're going to be right back. And you guys are going to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast. And we will be right back.
Hey, this is Ken M.
and Padawan J.
from the ODPH podcast.
Each week, we talk a parlay of topics.
That's right. Whether it's sports, pro wrestling, movies, TV, comics, and more, we've got a take on it.
And don't forget odphpodcast.com for links for Patreon, TeePublic, and the Parlay Points blogs, and much more.
Thanks for listening to the ODPH podcast. Now back to your regularly scheduled show.
Welcome, travelers. Seems like you're looking for a story. Well, I got one for you. It involves adventure, friendship, and all sorts of...
Earl, why don't you tell him about that time I stole that big-ass melon?
Yeah, I was going for more...
Or you could tell him about the time I kicked your ass, Earl.
I wouldn't ever tell him.
Do I need to get my ref gear on?
Okay, everyone, shut up. Now come with me as I tell you a story from afar. Hey everybody, my name's David. I'm the DM for From Afar Podcast. From Afar Podcast is all about four friends separated by distance, but brought together by adventure. Hope you all stop by and give us a listen. Thanks.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into plot for Darkman. We open on some retro Universal Studios logos, which is also kind of weird because it winds up being particularly modern at the end. But then we cut to warehouse down at the docks as guys wait for another group of dudes as they're ready to teach them a lesson for moving in on their property. These guys at the docks don't want to give up their property, but the guys come and want their property. I don't know. It's something stupid.
I think it's just your regular, I want your turf.
Yeah.
And the other guy doesn't want to give up his turf. That old chestnut.
So this other group of guy pulls up with a few men, and then the guy that was waiting for them and his team of union dock workers come out of the warehouse in order to pat down this new group, take their weapons for the meeting. Guy waiting is Eddie Black, and he tells the dudes he's not selling his property to anyone. If they don't like it, maybe he'll cut their balls off. So with a nod, the boss from the other group, Larry Drake, playing a guy named Durant, gives a nod to one of his henchmen. Henchman hits the deck and grabs the wooden leg off of one of the other henchmen, which is also a gun, and he starts mowing everyone down with the wooden leg gun, which was a very Dick Tracy sort of moment.
I laughed out loud because I was not expecting that.
Yeah. But again, this scene, as well as the scene in the lab, kind of sets up where like it's a goofy cast of characters, these henchmen.
Yes.
And then like they couldn't be more bland in reality.
Yeah, they kind of they're your hired goons, you know.
Yeah.
They outside of that scene, it's really they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then these guys just start shooting everyone and everything in their path until everyone on the other side dies except for Eddie Black. So they grab Eddie by the arms and hold him while Durant tells him his quote-unquote rules and cuts Eddie's fingers off one by one with a cigar cutter. And then we cut to credits. And when we come back, we have Liam Neeson in a lab doing some scans of his assistant's nose, and a montage of scientific-looking machines working until he successfully 3D prints a nose. When he looks at it under a microscope, the molecules start breaking down. His name is Peyton Westlake, and he's attempting to create liquid skin, but it's too unstable to last long enough. And then at home, Westlake and his girlfriend, Julie Hastings, sit at home and look at old photos on a projector, and then they fuck.
I was so uninterested in that. Like, I don't want to see Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand fuck. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, right? It's so...
Because I just think of them as old.
Right, yeah. It's like, they've never really played like that sexy leading man or leading woman type.
Exactly.
It just feels like two parents fucking.
Yeah, it's. I think they have good chemistry in the movie.
Yeah,
I think they're fine, but yeah, I didn't want to think about the guy from Taken banging the woman from 3 Billboards, and because that's my favorite role of Frances McDormand's, and she's just listen, she's older in that movie. There's nothing wrong with that, obviously, but
yeah.
She's not meant to be the like you said, the sex appeal there.
Right.
Like I just kept thinking about that. I was like, oh man, this isn't doing what you think it's doing, Sam.
Yeah. In the morning, Julie is on the phone for work talking about some documents that show some sort of illegal dealings going on. And then she's off to work because she's late. And Peyton accidentally puts a cup of coffee on one of the memos and puts a coffee ring on it, which will come up later, much later. Peyton follows after her as she walks down the street, and he unromantically asks her to marry him. She gets to do a checkered cab and tells him that she needs to think it over, and she's off. Not an ideal answer to that question.
He takes it pretty well, though.
Yeah, he doesn't seem fazed by it.
No, he's like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah. Julie then goes to the office of Louis Strack and confronts him about the memo that she has details about some bribes. And he fully admits to all of it, saying that he needed to bribe the zoning board in order to get plans through for some sort of skyscraper project. This guy's very cavalier about everything.
Yeah, the way he explains it, is the way I would imagine like Trump would explain something he did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh well, I saw an opportunity and I took it. Was I going to back down? Like it's like he's a straight shooter in that way.
Yeah.
Even though he's like a total scumbag.
Yeah.
And yeah, it almost made me think like, oh, okay, so I'm assuming this is the real bad guy, but is he evil? Because he's just bribing people, you know?
Right. Yeah, what's the evil part of his plan?
Right. Because at that point he's trying to get riverfront property. And he's like, yeah, I bribed the city officials. Like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure everyone does that in that, you know, and people like him in that position have 100% bribed others.
Uh-huh.
So like, okay, well, that's bad, but that's how things get done sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Gotta grease the wheels.
Exactly. There's a lot of red tape and, you know, money makes that go away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not like I didn't think he was the one sending Durant, but obviously he does.
Yeah. And we're not condoning bribery here, but it's very white collar.
Yes. Yeah. Really, no one gets hurt in this situation, it sounds like.
Usually. Unless they need to find a memo that details it.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
is just also like that's white collar crime 101. It's like don't leave a paper trail.
And Frances McDormand openly admits to it. Like, I have the documents. That rule number one: if you don't show your hand.
Right.
You know, you can make some veiled threats. Like, all right, like I know what you're up to, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
Without telling him, I have documents.
A little birdie told me that you bribed the zoning board.
Yes. Again, make it not like very vague.
Yeah. Not I have in my house. Here's the address. That a memo that says this.
Yeah, and definitely don't tell him you don't have it on you. Because I mean, don't tell him you have it at all. But now that you say, "Oh, I don't have it," well, all right, now I'm gonna go ransack your place.
Yeah.
Where else would you have it?
Right. He also tells her that she is encroaching on very dangerous territory because it involves gangster named Durant. Back at the lab, Westlake and his assistant are trying their liquid skin experiments again when the power gets cut. Sample liquid skin winds up lasting longer than it had in previous experiments, and then come to realize it's because it's now in the dark. At that moment, Durant and his men show up and start tearing the place apart, beating up Westlake and his assistant. Durant tells Peyton he's just looking for the memo. It doesn't need to be any more difficult than that, but Peyton doesn't know what they're talking about, so they blow the assistant's head off and then proceed to mutilate Peyton beyond all recognition. They burn his hands, then dunk his face into a barrel of acid, I think. All the hands, another stop motion signature from Sam Raimi.
Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
Not him like a person getting brutally murdered.
No.
Or, you know, beaten, but just the animation aspect and his hands going up in flames.
Yeah.
That was cool.
They find the memo, they turn on the gas to fill the room, leaving one of those birds to drink the water to set off a lighter. And they leave, and at that moment Julie comes home. As Peyton tries to stop the lighter from lighting, it goes off and the whole apartment explodes. Peyton gets yeeted into the bay.
That made me laugh. That's an example of not great effects.
No. But like it almost seems on purpose.
It was very tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah. It seems like a style choice that wound up being that way.
Sure. I think you're right. It would be as if like Ash in The Evil Dead when he gets thrown by the entity, right? The camera is throwing him.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like even the green screen stuff during the chase sequence on the helicopter seems like it was a stylistic choice to look the way it does.
Okay. And
to me it does. To me it does. Or maybe I'm just misremembering what early 90s green screen effects looked like.
There were definitely some green screen effects that stick out like a sore thumb.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a scene. I think it's after. I think it's after Darkman kills Ted Raimi, and he's like on top of the building and he's lamenting, "What have I become?" And it's very obvious he's up against a green screen.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, maybe that's the style that he wanted. That's what he was going for. I don't know.
It's like nowadays with Neil Breen, his green screen effects. It's a style choice.
Yeah, he does that on purpose.
Yeah. It's all part of the plan.
Yes, it's the Neil Breen effect.
Neil Breen, an obvious fan of Sam Raimi's work.
I would say, sure. Why not?
We then cut to the funeral, and Julie is the only one there, and we find out that there was never a body recovered. And then she has a breakdown at the cemetery. Cut to a team of doctors who found Peyton, and at this point only known as a John Doe. The physician info dumps on us and a team of doctors, including child killer John Landis. She mentions that his burns are so bad that the subject no longer feels pain, and that when someone loses the ability to feel pain, it can affect them negatively in a mental sense. As they move on to another patient, Peyton wakes up and breaks out of his restraints, and when the doctor goes to check on him, he's already gone. Peyton winds up in an alley and finds a coat to wear as it pours. He sees Julie and tries to approach her, but she is scared off by him and she retreats into an apartment building. After trying to sleep under a box in an alley to get out of the rain, Peyton goes to his lab to try to recover what he can among the rubble. He finds a mirror and takes his bandages off, and he is not pleased what he looks like, to say the least.
And again, that reminded me of Batman '89, right? With the Joker. Yeah,
the
mirror. Yeah, that's it's almost ripped exactly out of Batman '89. Obviously, there's no other doctor there, but you know he's got the mirror and he's cutting the bandages off. He starts freaking out. There's definitely Batman like nods, I'd say.
Yeah. He then grabs his stuff and starts moving into an abandoned factory that will serve as his Batcave. He somehow hooks the power up and all systems are go as he manages to salvage some of his equipment and gets it all running again. So he goes right to work to try to 3D print his old face, but this problem as the only picture he has left of himself has part of his face destroyed. We managed to start the process of getting him a new face, but it's going to take him over 3 weeks to do so.
What's the point of that?
I don't know, to be honest with you, what this purpose of this serves in the movie. I can't think off the top of my head of something that benefits from a narrative standpoint of why he can't immediately do his face.
Yeah, I don't think it serves a purpose for the plot.
Yeah, good point. I don't know.
Yeah, I maybe we missed something.
Yeah, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that it influences.
Like, is it like it gives him time to go after the other members of the gang instead? I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I'm flummoxed.
Maybe we'll figure it out as we go through the rest of this plot.
Sounds good.
He starts doing his experiments and all that, trying to get his liquid skin to stabilize and not decay immediately. Then he realizes that his hands have been burned and almost useless. At a ball run by Strack Industries, Louis Strack comes up to Julie and starts asking her about what she plans to do about the memo that she found. She storms off, upset about the fact that he's bringing up the memo that was supposedly burned up in the same fire that killed Peyton. And then Strack makes it up to her by twirling her and forcing her to dance with him. Meanwhile, in the air vent, Peyton looks on, upset that he can't be down there with Julie. He then recognizes Duran and Ted Raimi as the guys that were at his lab in the night of the fire. So when Ted Raimi is walking home, Peyton attacks him and takes him into the sewer, where he waterboards him into telling him information. But he's really not interested in the info, he just wants to kill him. So he shoves him out of a manhole cover in the middle of traffic, and truck winds up running over Ted Raimi's head, we assume. Later, Peyton starts stalking one of the henchmen that looks like Matt Pinfield as he does a money drop at a restaurant. Then goes back to the lab and successfully 3D prints himself a hand. Then he gets to work on generating himself a disguise to make himself look like Matt Pinfield. Then goes into his house and chloroforms Matt Pinfield so he could sleep while he puts on some aftershave so he could smell like him. The Peyton disguises this guy named Paulie, goes to the diner and make the money pickup. And later, Durant and one of the guys that did the money exchange break into Paulie's apartment to find Paulie fully dressed in his apartment. Paulie was supposed to deliver the money, but obviously he didn't because he's been asleep this entire time. So they find a couple of airline tickets Peyton planted there, so they think Paulie is planning on running with the money. So they toss Paulie through the window and he lands below in a car. Peyton is there, still looking like Polly, and a woman notices and starts to scream as Peyton runs off. I get back to it. I think why he can't 3D print his face yet is for things like he can't approach Julie yet, or he thinks he can't approach her yet.
Okay, so it's the story's way of stopping that.
Yeah, until they want it or need it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and the money, when he steals the money, is that just to set the one guy up?
Yeah.
Okay, like he doesn't need the money.
Yeah, I don't know what he does with it. I assume he keeps it, but the plan was just so he can set up the guy to make it look like he was taking the money.
Okay. I thought that was what was going to happen the rest of the movie. Like he was going to kind of take down the gang from the inside, one member at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of does, right? He takes down the bald guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he dresses up as one other henchman, but that's at the end.
Yeah.
And it's during the finale.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't come into play more. I think it would have been cool if he infiltrates the mob.
And like he knocks them off one by one.
Yeah, right. And you could almost make it like John Carpenter's The Thing. You don't know who he is. He could be any one of us.
Sure. Yeah.
I obviously it would be tougher once he's picking them off one by one. There's less of them around, but yeah, I think that'd be cool. He starts out in the gang and he's the bald guy at first, and then he takes out the Hispanic guy next. But then he dresses up as the Hispanic guy. Now you don't know who's who, and there's some dissension amongst the ranks. It adds a little bit of an extra layer to the character of Darkman. Because now he's playing psychological games here.
Yeah.
And he's perfect at mimicking voices.
Yeah. I mean, we do see him like training himself to hear one of the guy's voices.
Mm-hmm.
So Paulie, he just like kind of grunts. He doesn't really say much because he knows he can't really do it. So that's when he gets the idea to work on it, when he's pretending to be Durant. Right, okay. He records him at home, and he listens back to it a bunch of times so he can get his voice back, voice right.
Yeah, it's also a little bit of a parallel to Taken, where he on the plane ride over to Paris, he's just constantly listening to a recording of the kidnapper.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a little parallel there. I cracked the code.
There it is. Back at the lab, Peyton continues his experiments that continue to only have a shelf life of about 100 minutes. Starts to have a breakdown until the computer tells him that the facial reconstruction is complete. Which again, now that it's complete, it doesn't really mean anything. It never really meant much. So Peyton follows Julie to the cemetery with his new face and scares the shit out of her. But after the initial shock, she's happy to see him. They go to an outdoor cafe where they talk about it being together again. And he says he needs to work things out on his end, but asks her if she would still love him if he was horribly disfigured. And she says she's not sure, which is not the ideal answer he was looking for. Later at night, Peyton goes to Durant's house and records him on a phone call talking about a money exchange he plans to make in Chinatown. Peyton then goes back to the lab to use the recording to get Durant's voice down as he starts to 3D print his face. And eventually Peyton goes to a grocery store with Durant's face on and pulls a gun on the cashier, then announces straight to the CCTV camera that his name is Robert Durant. So Durant immediately gets arrested at his home ahead of the Chinatown meeting, and Peyton pretends to be him for the trip. At this meeting, Peyton tries to get the money from the other guy as quickly as possible so his disguise doesn't start to falter, but the guy is not too keen to give up the money right away. Meanwhile, the real Durant posts bail and races to Chinatown to make the meeting. As the old Chinese man that Peyton is trying to get the money from continues to talk, Peyton is very aware of the fact that his disguise is running out of time. So he makes a threat to the old man that he demands money by the time he finishes his cigar and cuts it short, too. And the old man relents. Meanwhile, stuck in traffic, the real Durant starts out on foot to make it to the meeting. He's going through the revolving door of the building. So is Peyton, still looking like Durant. They go spinning around and around in a revolving door, telling one of the Durant's henchmen to shoot the other guy. But obviously the guy can't tell them apart. It eventually comes to blows, and Peyton winds up punching the real Durant in the face and takes the money. But at that moment, his disguise falters and he has to run. So the real Durant and the henchmen chase after him, shooting in the street with a bunch of people around, but Peyton manages to get away. Julie and Peyton go to a carnival and ride the rides, and she tries to get him to stay longer, but he tells her that he has to go back to the hospital for his therapy sessions. She asks him to tell her what is wrong, and he almost tells her, but then he sees a sideshow and thinks about how she'll react, so he just asks her if she found anyone while he was away. She says there was a man that comforted her, but nothing more than that. He decides that he's going to try and win her a stuffed animal at one of the carnival games, and it's one where you have to knock down the milk bottles. And he manages to do it, but the game operator starts giving him shit about being over the line. So Peyton starts to freak out and demands the elephant. The operator puts his hands on Peyton, telling him to leave. So Peyton breaks his fingers and throws him through the back of the booth, grabs the elephant, and tells Julie to take the fucking elephant.
I think this scene was probably the best scene in the movie. There's so many good there's so many good shots, camera angles. Like when the carnival barker touches him, and you have the visual of Peyton just losing it. Like you have the actual visual, right?
Yeah.
It's the fire in his eyes, the surroundings cracking and turning red. That scene was really jarring. Like the whole scene, right? Because it shows like a creepy clown. It shows a lot of strange images in this scene, and it's a perfect scene shot by, like, only Sam Raimi could shoot that scene.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
So at that moment, his face starts to melt, so he runs off, and Julie runs after him. She follows him back to the warehouse where he hides from her. She tells him that he shouldn't have to have lied to her, and she can help him if he just wants to talk, but he won't come out. So Julie goes back to Strack's office and tells him that she can't see him anymore because of Peyton being back. And when she tells him, he gets a phone call and he excuses himself. And when he's out of the room, she sees the memo with that coffee stain on it and realizes this is the memo from that was supposedly burned up in the lab.
She rats him out twice, Peyton, right? Julie rats him out twice, inadvertently.
Yeah.
Right, because she tells Strack, "Oh, Peyton's back," and I was like, "Wait a minute, I had Peyton killed, so now I know who's giving us the problems here."
Yeah. Then he just he sees her seeing the memo, and he just freely admits to everything about having the lab destroyed and all that, saying he has an employee that he hired to do things like the fire. But he says the bigger picture is that they're building a city, and they can't turn away from that. So she leaves, and then calls Durant, and then she leaves, and he calls Durant into his office and tells him that Peyton is still alive, and he's the one that's been fucking with her operations. And he tells him to follow Julie to wherever Peyton is and finish the job. Julie goes to the warehouse and is immediately taken hostage by Strack's goons, who put her into a car and drive away. And the other goons start shooting up the warehouse trying to kill Peyton. The henchmen go into a warehouse randomly shooting the shit out of the place, and Peyton hightails it to the roof, where he starts getting shot at by Durant from a helicopter with explosive rounds. And the roof gets exploded a whole bunch, and Peyton goes back into the warehouse. A couple of henchmen pursue, and Peyton hides in the shadows as the two guys stomp around trying to find him. And hijinks ensues as Peyton starts using his faces to confuse the henchmen and winds up beating the shit out of both of them. He then puts on his own face and goes to the roof and jumps onto the helicopter, starts fighting with one of the henchmen, and Durant pulls one of the guys right out of the helicopter and then starts fistfighting with Durant. Manages to pull a towing hook out of the helicopter, which is convenient because when he gets pushed off the helicopter, he manages to grab hold of it and swings over the city as Durant tries to shake him loose. The helicopter tries everything to try and get Peyton off, from tossing him into the buildings and lowering him into oncoming traffic. All this rouses the attention of a police helicopter who tries to get them to land, but Durant blows it up. Eventually, Peyton manages to land on top of a truck and hooks the helicopter to it, which then drives into a tunnel, and the helicopter crashes at the entrance.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I did like the one moment in this whole chase sequence when he's swinging and he swings up. Like, it's a very Raimi moment to me. He swings up to the window and like apologizes.
That part made me laugh.
To the meeting, I was like, "Oh, that's okay. That's how you know this is a Raimi action sequence." Got to throw that comedy in there, but yeah, like Dan said, I laughed out loud at that moment too. But yeah, the rest of the scene just felt very, like we said, not that exciting of a set piece there.
Yeah. And then our hero says, "Burn in hell." Mwahahaha.
I was gonna say he has a one-liner, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, it's like a little villain there for
Well,
that moment.
he is kind of bad.
He's not great.
No, yeah, he's not a true hero.
Yeah, yeah. It's all personal, right?
Oh yeah, he doesn't.
Uh,
I don't think he cares who he endangers either.
yeah. Besides Julie, I suppose.
Yeah, but the people below him, like that's fine.
Yeah.
No worries here.
Later, it looks like Durant somehow escaped the fiery helicopter explosion. Wink. And meets up with Strack at a construction site. Strack, who still has Julie hostage, says the world won't miss another lawyer, so he piles them all into the elevator and heads to the top. And he mentions that he also killed his wife at some point. He starts talking to he starts taking them across the beams and tricks Peyton as Durant into revealing himself because he mentions Durant's kids, which Peyton plays along with, but Durant doesn't have kids. So he takes his Peyton mask off and they start fighting atop the beams. Julie winds up going over to the side, but her cuffs land on some poles, stopping her from falling, but she's also slipping. And, her shoulders are probably now out of their sockets. But
I thought the same thing. Like that would have torn her arms out of her sockets, falling from that height.
Yeah. And then eventually the last henchman goes over the side, and Julie also falls, but Peyton manages to swing on a rope and catch her before she falls to her death. Strack then gets a hold of a rivet gun, and he's absolutely the worst shot ever, as he only lands one shot on Peyton. But then he calls Peyton a freak, which pisses him off, and Peyton manages to fight back. Eventually, Strack almost goes over the side, but Peyton grabs him by the leg in a scene oddly similar to The Dark Knight. Strack says he can't let him fall because he'd have to live with it. So Peyton promptly drops him, saying he has to live with a lot of things these days. This is like when Adidas dropped Kanye from their label.
They're learning to live with a lot of things.
Yeah, just like they can't drop me. What are they gonna do? I was like, no, we absolutely 100% can, and that's exactly what we're gonna do.
I wish he would have said it before dropping Strack.
Sure.
I know it's obviously for the audience, but you have to pretend that there is no audience. So saying that when he's fallen, 40 stories to his death, it doesn't have the same effect.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. The whole moment of this, and you bringing up Adidas and Kanye, just reminded me that a lot of that was just the real life version of that news story. That was the man who was stabbed. What are you going to do? Stab me?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God, he stabbed me.
So
it was such a weird. It's a weird taunt by Strack. He doesn't know Peyton.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Because he kind of like lays into him like, oh, you don't have the guts. What are you talking about? He just murdered everybody.
Yeah.
If anyone here has the guts, it's this man.
Yeah. No, yeah, he's let lots of people die.
Yeah. Brutally.
He got Ted Raimi decapitated.
Right. He crashed a helicopter. What else did he crashed a helicopter? He got a man decapitated. He got a man shot.
Mm-hmm.
Did he beat anyone to death? Or he threw one of the other guys off of the building already.
Yeah.
Right? The other henchman, he hits him. Oh no, what is he? He takes the hook and like trips him up and the guy goes falling.
Yeah.
So he's already thrown one person off the building. What makes you think he's not going to throw you off the building?
Yeah. Then Julie and Peyton then head down the elevator, and Julie says that she still wants to be with Peyton despite his disfigurement.
Lies.
And Peyton says he can't be with her because he's changed. He's become angry or more violent. So he runs and puts on a mask, and Julie chases after him, but he's lost in a sea of people in the morning commute. And the most perfect cameo ever, Peyton looks at Julie trying to find him behind a Bruce Campbell mask, and he disappears into the crowd. And that is the end of Darkman.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I like how this movie doesn't resolve his disfigurement.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of thought that's what it was going to, because Frances McDermott even says like, oh, you'll perfect the skin, like you'll be fine. So I kind of felt that, oh yeah, they're going to do that, aren't they? Like the next scene is going to show him having fixed his face fully.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how they just leave it. No, I can't go back. I've changed. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's going to be a dark ending.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate this movie. I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy it as much as I was hoping I would.
Yeah, I think I was disappointed with the expectations I had going in.
Yeah.
It's kind of the best way to describe it.
Sure. Yeah. So that is the plot, and we are going to be right back, and we're going to play a little bit of not a game so much, but we've got another segment here. But before we do, we are going to play some ads so we can pay those bills, and we will be right back. And welcome back. And now it's time for our final segment of the week, and we are doing a recast this. First time we're doing one of these. And what it is with exactly what it sounds like. We are going to take Darkman and bring it into 2022, and we're going to talk about our cast. So we've got 5 characters I have here, 4 main characters, and then cameo at the end for Bruce Campbell's cameo. So who would like to start with their Peyton Westlake?
I'll go.
All right. Dan, who is your Peyton Westlake?
Yeah, so I've been dying to do this. I love recasting; it's so much fun. I hope that I didn't let you guys down here, but so as my Peyton, I cast Daniel Radcliffe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like Daniel Radcliffe a lot. He has done some very interesting movies, and he doesn't give a fuck, and that's why I like Daniel Radcliffe. He made his Harry Potter money. And now he's just doing whatever comes his way, like any silly thing that comes his way. So, having seen him in Guns Akimbo, I think he'd be perfect for this role.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, going from the +6er Liam Neeson to the very short Daniel Radcliffe. I like it. I like it.
He's unassuming.
Yeah. Mark, what about you? Who's your Peyton Westlake?
So I guess with Liam Neeson playing this part, maybe me and Dan did both lean towards the more British English side. Because for some reason, I thought a guy you could convince to do it, and he would give you a little bit of star power, especially the ugly Darkman side, would be Eddie Redmayne.
Okay.
Because I feel like he would really dive into the the parts where he doesn't have the mask on after he's burnt.
Sure.
And it just gives a distinct look for, a difference between that face and, his actual face. And I feel, as I said, the same thing with, as Dan said about Daniel Radcliffe, I feel like he's a guy that doesn't really care about the roles he does. If he really gets into a role, he'll do it and succeed at it. I feel like that encompasses all 3 actors so far that we've put in this role. You just give them something they like and they'll just run with it. But yeah, Eddie Redmayne was the first person that came to my mind.
Nice. Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah, very good, very good. As for me, I was thinking more physicality. As I said, Liam Neeson's a tall guy. I think he's like 6'4", and I wanted to make sure I had that in me. And I also wanted a guy that was a little bit darker side too, that he's been able to play, because Peyton Westlake does go a little bit off the rails. So I went with Alexander Skarsgård.
Okay. One of the Skarsgårds. I like it.
One of the Skarsgårds. So yeah, he's tall.
That's
not
Pennywise.
Not Pennywise.
Not Pennywise. Yeah.
We were talking Alexander Skarsgård from True Blood and The Northman.
I was just making sure I knew which Skarsgård we were talking about.
Tarzan as well. Yeah. So I think he could play the kind of crazy part of Darkman well.
And he's a good looking guy.
Yeah. Dirty him up a little bit. Disfigure his face.
Yeah, I feel all of these people would embrace the disfigured Darkman side of the role.
I agree. I think those are solid picks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like for Dan's, probably leans more on like the empathetic side. Like you could probably empathize with Daniel Radcliffe more, sort of like a tragic figure, than say like an Alexander Skarsgård, which I think can come off as hateable sometimes.
And
like
he's
darker.
He's more imposing, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
Alexander Skarsgård, because again, you've seen him. He's a good-looking guy. He's in shape. where like, Daniel Radcliffe is in shape too, but he's a little smaller. And Eddie Redmayne, same thing, right? He's a smaller guy.
Yeah.
He's he's skinny, soft spoken. I think you have a good balance here.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Julie Hastings, played by Frances McDormand in the original, which was a departure from what we know her from as the girlfriend. But yeah, Dan, who's your Julie Hastings?
My casting for Julie was Amanda Seyfried.
God damn.
I like that.
Yeah, I was looking over a list, and she really stuck out at me. And she's another actor who is not a stranger to different roles. You know, she's played a lot of. She has good range, and I think she can play. You could in the recasting, you could probably give her character a little bit more to do as well. Because she can play the subdued, meek kind of character, but she could also play a badass if needed. And I like her. I think she's a good actress. She's kind of underrated.
Okay, I like that pick a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she's cool. I like Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, I liked her in what was it? The Dropout, the Elizabeth Holmes show on Hulu. She was really good in that.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I should check it out.
You should.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you? Julie Hastings.
Yeah, so Dan took my second pick.
Really? You had Amanda Seyfried too?
Yeah. Well,
wow.
OG Amanda Seyfried from Veronica Mars here.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
I was before she was cool. Anyway,
dick measuring contest over Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, so my choice was a little more selfish, thinking that I would be involved in this movie. But I chose for my Julie Florence Pugh.
That. Yeah.
You know, I feel that, again, as same reason why her and Amanda Seyfried were neck and neck to me, was because I feel like she can adapt to any role, you know, and it makes it pretty easy. And I was thinking of more making Julie more involved. Not so much like in that final scene, having her be less like start out as a damsel, but then sort of break out of it and kind of help Peyton a little bit, take out some guys, maybe not full on Black Widow, you know, Florence Pugh, but, you know, just sort of be a little more physical in that scene than Frances McDormand was. Because I feel if you're making this in 2022, you can't really have that type of damsel anymore. So I just went with her ability to be a chameleon, you know, sort of in a role, and already having the chops of not looking out of place in action. And that's why I went with Florence Pugh. I think she also brings eyeballs to the movie as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope she brings her eyeballs.
And like to your point, Mark, where you don't have to have her be the Black Widow, Florence Pugh, but she could easily, you know, like step on a henchman's toe or just like hit him over the head with something that's nearby and give Darkman the advantage, you know?
Yeah. Or hell, even like jump on his back and like
100%.
sort of chokehold thing, you know?
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. As for me, I was very uncreative for this pick. I really had struggles. So I went with somebody that Julie Hastings is a lawyer. So I went with someone that has recently played a lawyer. I went with Tatiana Maslany.
Oh, interesting.
I would be very happy with that pick.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick.
Yep. She's got sort of similar hair to how Julie had it in that show. She's like short, curly. So
and talk about a girl that can morph.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was a little uncreative with that, but that's who I went with, and I like it.
And you have someone who has comedic chops as well there.
Sure.
So she could carry her own in terms of dialogue. Not that the other actresses can't, but she would bring a little bit more of a comedic presence if needed.
Tatiana is like actually a trained comedic actress. So you know.
Yeah, I like her. I liked her. I've only seen her in Parks and Rec and the She-Hulk show. And I like her. She's funny.
Yeah.
You need to watch at least season 1 of Orphan Black, Dan.
Everyone keeps telling me that. I have to watch so much stuff.
There's not enough time to watch all this. It's too much. Too
It's
much
impossible.
stuff. Too much content.
I'm just saying one season. It's like it's BBC America. It's like not a full like run. It's like an HBO run. You know.
Okay.
So
I will. For you, Mark, I will do my best.
You don't have to do 2, 3, and 4 seasons. Just the first season is ridiculous. So
it's really good.
Man, you're giving me making it hard for me over here.
I'll just think about baseball. All right. Next one, Louis Strack, our villain. Who you got, Dan?
I picked Idris Elba as Louis Strack.
Okay.
And I think he would bring much more gravitas to the role. Obviously, this man is he's like pure sex appeal. I think it kind of clashes with my Julie in a way, because there is a little bit of an age difference there.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was going to say, I don't know. I don't trust Darkman's chances in this one with Daniel Radcliffe.
Which makes it even better, in my opinion, because again, no one would expect Daniel Radcliffe to be able to fuck up Idris Elba, and I think it really gives you that David and Goliath feel.
Sure.
And Idris Elba as Louis Strack has more. He's more cunning, I think. He's a little bit more devious, you could say, because he has that confidence. I feel like he would be able to exude more confidence than the actor who played him in the 1990 Darkman. Mm-hmm. And Idris Elba is just great. Like who doesn't like Idris Elba?
Yeah, I always like seeing him pop up in something.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. What about you, Mark?
So I kind of literally changed my mind during this conversation.
Okay.
I'll give you the other one after I hear yours, Ant. But the one I changed my mind to is for some reason it popped in my head, Adam Driver.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I like Adam Driver.
Yeah. I just, for some reason, popped in my head. I was like, I need him to be both intimidating but kind of charming at the same time. And I feel he can pull both off in that role. Like, and especially, I was thinking more because I believe he is definitely taller than Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah, he's a tall guy.
Yeah. Yep. So I was thinking more, have him be more physically imposing to Eddie Redmayne. That was the main reason I changed. Because I think that was one of the bad things in actual Darkman is that guy didn't look like he could beat up Liam Neeson.
Sure.
So because I'm recasting of that guy being a little more of a badass than a smarmy businessman. Like more of a mob leader kind of character. So I felt that he needed to be a little more like Darkman needed to be a little bit more of an underdog to bring some of the quote unquote powers he has into play to take him out.
Sure.
But yeah, I switched to Adam Driver like mid this whole discussion. So
okay, cool. I like Adam Driver. As for me, I do have two, but the one that I leaned more towards was, who's Louis Strack? Guy in a suit, but he's also the villain. And who have we seen as the villain that wears a suit all the time more than Mark Strong?
Oh, Mark Strong. Nice.
Yeah.
Mark Strong's pretty good.
Yeah. So, he's a very suave guy.
Yeah. Just always the bad guy, always in a suit. Perfect for this. I don't know. I guess is he a Tony Stark type, this Louis Strack? Or is just is the name a coincidence?
I think it's a
Strack Industries. Strack Industries. So
yeah. Well, because Stark is weapons. This guy's real estate.
Yeah.
He's almost kind of like. Obviously, this came out first, but he reminded me of Christopher Walken's character from Batman Returns, and his name is Shrek.
Shrek. Yeah.
So again, he was into real estate, and he was a very slimy character.
Yeah. Yep. Mark Strong.
Yeah. So my number 2 was James Marsden.
Okay. So he does not get the girl.
Yep. But this time
that
by
was
his own actions.
Legitimately one of the reasons I was going to bring up Ant.
My second one was just for the stunt casting. It would have been Bill Skarsgård.
We need that. We do need that in a movie. The Skarsgård brothers going at it.
Yeah. All right, Robert Durant. Who do we have for Robert Durant, played by in this Larry Drake from L.A. Law? Who's your gangster?
So I wanted someone who was more intimidating than the one played by Larry Drake, and someone who because Durant in this also has some humor in it, be it dark humor. I think someone who has shown that they could be intimidating and funny is Dave Bautista.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and he definitely gives off the enforcer vibes. And like I said, obviously he has a little bit of range, so you can cast him as just the strong silent guy, or you can cast him as the wisecracking, the wisecracking goon. I think he would be a good fit.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
And him next to Idris Elba, I mean, come on, that's very intimidating.
Yeah. All right, Mark, what about you?
So I know he's definitely a little bit on the older side, but I want my Durant not really need to do much physically, but still be intimidating and seem like he could. So I was thinking Danny Trejo.
Okay.
I'll never say no to Danny Trejo.
Yeah, exactly.
The reason it went in my head was that opening scene, where he's just being intimidating without really doing much.
Sure.
And I just felt like, I was like, Danny Trejo can get that off, and he can do the humor, as Dan was mentioning, that this role needs as well. And I just feel like, he would be, you can sort of revamp that character to, especially if you're making like Adam Driver a little more hands-on with the physicality. You can have him just be like the intimidator more than, I guess the guy that goes in and throws punches a lot, but he could,
right.
But yeah, just that opening scene that was immediately who I thought of. And then, as I said to you before the podcast, I'm like, I'm struggling with Durant because I couldn't find anybody that I could like legitimately beat Danny Trejo. And I'm like, I know he's like 78. I'm like, I got it. But I'm like, no, I just see him doing the cigar cutting thing on the fingers and just making it more badass with that. But yeah, that's who I'm going with.
Good pick. I like it. I have thought of like two more guys that I would like, but I'm gonna go with my original one, and maybe I'll mention the other guys. So he's an enforcer, kind of a badass, kind of an understated badass. So I decided to go with a guy that did that for 10 seasons across 2 different shows. And with Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Does he play Mike?
He plays Mike Ehrmantraut.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Because he's more soft spoken.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a man of few words. He's all business,
Yeah.
Brass tacks,
Yeah. He's a cool character, man.
Yeah. My other two that I just thought of right now, just because I've been watching the White Lotus and he's on season 2, Michael Imperioli, Christopher
That's a pretty
Moltisanti.
good. Yeah. He might even be a pretty good Strack.
Yeah, he could be. And then just because I typed in Michael into IMDb, Michael Shannon popped up.
Ooh, he's always a good nut job.
He's really good in Bullet Train.
Yeah, he can play anything.
Yeah.
He's literally a chameleon.
And he just makes everything he's in better.
He definitely adds some flavor.
Which again is 100% what he does in Bullet Train.
Stop trying to make Bullet Train happen. It's not.
It won't. Trust me, it won't. But everything you said about Michael Shannon is 100% true in that movie.
So it just confirms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one we have here is just the cameo at the end. Who is Darkman turning into for that last scene? That doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you know who Bruce Campbell is. But I want to know who you guys picked for this. Dan.
So real quick, I picked one more, just as kind of like an homage to the Raimi brothers. I picked the character as Rick, Ted Raimi.
Mm-hmm.
And although again it's a short role, but he has a couple lines in it. I picked Paul Dano as Rick.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I like that one.
Yeah. Just he can do anything, Paul Dano. He's definitely someone to keep your eye on.
Mm-hmm.
And just a nice little quick thing.
Yeah, it was Paul Dano in Swiss Army Man, right?
Yes. So I would team up Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe again.
Yeah. Does he get to ride Daniel Radcliffe with a jet ski?
No, it's the opposite this time. Right, Daniel Radcliffe would do something to Paul Dano.
Yeah.
I went kind of boring for my cameo. Obviously, if we're doing a remake, you have to give a nod to the original. So I went with Liam Neeson.
Okay, I
That's
thought
actually
about
pretty
that.
good.
I thought about that for a possibility.
Yeah, again, a very, very safe pick, but you pay homage to the original.
Sure. All right, I like it. Mark, what about you?
Okay, so I don't have an explanation for why this guy popped in my head when you said cameo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say the name, but I don't really have any backing. Stanley Tucci.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, the Tooch. Everybody loves the Tooch.
Just him turning around with glasses on is all I saw in my head when you said, give me a good cameo for an updated movie. I'm like, Stanley Tucci, because everybody was like, what the fuck is Stanley Tucci doing?
I would think that too. Like, why Stanley Tucci? Well, why not?
Yeah.
That's exactly why I think the cameo should be something like that. Because one of my favorite cameos of all time is Matt Damon in Euro Trip.
Sure.
Because it just comes as like, why the fuck is Matt Damon doing this?
Matt Damon wouldn't be a bad pick for this either. He's always cameoing somewhere. Always cameos in the Thor movies.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah, but it's just it just popped in my head for some reason the minute you said we were picking a cameo before the podcast.
All right. Mine's completely out of left field, and it doesn't make any sense to anybody unless you listen to a podcast like this. But I saw his face while looking at my Plex account, and I went with Neil Breen. Because why not?
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. You know where I thought you were going with that?
What?
I thought you were going to go with Malibu.
Oh, yeah. It would be also pretty great.
Because I could see in my head when he turns around, he's got the shades on, and he just lowers the shades and gives that little smile.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Both are great picks. Neil Breen would definitely make it a classic.
Yeah. It would be just so batshit insane to do that.
Because I could see Neil Breen just staring into the camera, straight face, right, and just like totally breaking character.
Now that I think of it, maybe my Peyton Westlake is Neil Breen. Right? Remember in
Are you just turning this into a Neil Breen movie now?
Remember in Fateful Findings when he has the bandage on his face?
Oh God!
Just like Darkman.
Just like Darkman. It's the sequel that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah. All right.
Stupid. I love it.
All right. Nobody's got any more casting, right?
I'm done.
All right. That's gonna wrap us up this week. This was Darkman. And next week, I don't know what we're doing, to be honest with you. It's Thanksgiving. Everybody's got shit they got to do this week. So maybe we'll be able to get together and do something. We've talked about some ideas that we have, but we'll discuss. Check us out on all our socials. If you're listening to this, you probably know where to find us, but TickTamPod on Instagram and Twitter. And They Called This Movie on the TikToks. And yeah, that's us. That's this week. That's They Called This Movie. And the director of Darkman is Sam Raimi. So, for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony Delvecchio telling Sam Raimi, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Called Us a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TickTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Called Us a Movie.